Welcome back, everybody, to Unconditional Surrender in Europe, game designed by Salvatore Vasta, published by GMT Games. This is the continuation of the C.U.C.U campaign, affectionately known as C.U.C.U, for collapsing the UK and crippling the UK, and collapsing the USSR. My opponent has done both, and he is trying to put the finishing touches on the collapse of the UK by getting rid of the British presence here in Morocco and Gibraltar. It is April of 1943. The weather is severe in the cold zone, severe in the mild zone, and fair in the warm zone, which does not bode well for the Allies. Okay, we'll just go ahead and get started here. I believe it's page down. Yes. So nobody's going to declare war. There's exactly one minor left who hasn't been either conquered or aligned or whatever, and that neutral is the Netherlands, and it is leaning towards the Germans. So now we're into the economy phases. So we're just going to Germany's like at 34. Britain's at 16. The reason why the Portuguese and Irish have so much is because the U.S. just gives them points. And the Russians are at 18 factories. Okay. Now we go into strategic warfare. Should be against the West now. I'm only +2. I haven't been able to get any bombed markers in there. And he's +5 because he does not have an airplane in Norway. He goes ahead and throws out his submarines. He rolled an 8. No matter what I roll, even I rolled the maximum, and because it's halved, it's a 4, so I end up having my factory loss counter go up 1. But his submarines aren't coming back for 6 turns, so that was a good thing for me. Be a little while before I have to see those particular submarines again. Now we're into strategic movement. I can't remember if... Oh, yes. He, knowing that I had fair weather and I also have a surprise attack marker in my pocket, he decided not to give me any kind of foothold here in Iraq and Kuwait because he didn't have this particular city covered. If we go back, can we go back a space? See, he did not, he was trying to get this guy to there, but he can't march because Iraq is on his side and neutral non-violation. This neutral can't move into that neutral's territory. However, it can strategically move past it, and draw supply through it. So what he does is he takes his strategic movement this turn and goes, put him there. He grabs his strategic move marker and puts it on top of the guy. I know it's not sequence that you're supposed to do it in, but it works. For the West, I don't think I had one, did I? I just took it off of somebody. And Soviets, I didn't take the marker off. You'll see me take the marker off them later. So now he started to try and go. He says, well, I'll just start hitting you with the Italian Air Force. And I said, we need to discuss some rules. And the thing that I said, he was talking about, well, I'm thinking about trying to, launch the armor against this garrison down here because he has better airplanes and things and try and just force his way in. Because if he can take this out, that's less fleets for me to be able to use, and then less fleets he has to deal with as far as trying to put me out of supply and stuff like that. Which made, perfect sense. So I said, well, if you're really and truly committed to doing that invasion, then you want to play your surprise attack marker in this C zone. And he went, huh? I said, because if you read the definitions of C zone is all the water hexes and all the coastal hexes on that C zone. So all these coastal hexes down here as well, right? And surprise attack marker in a C zone says that any naval air combats that take place in the C zone, which would include the coastal hexes, the guy who has the surprise attack marker gets +1. So all of his attacks on my fleets and everything and airplanes here will be at +1. But as long as he's attacking, over here and not over here someplace. But everything I have is on that C zone. So, and he was like, "What? Are you kidding me?" I went, "Yeah. There's a reason why they cost 20 production points. They give you that huge advantage when you're trying to pull off an invasion. You're going to get a huge bonus to try and knock down all my stuff." So he put it down there, and then he said, "Okay, here we go." So now you'll just see him knocking out my air fairly easily. So Italians took out the British air. That German there goes going after, I believe, the fleet now. I think we're going after fleets. I'm going to unstack these guys a little bit so you can see a little better. And he's +4. +2 for German, +1 because he's going against a boat, airplane versus naval. And he's +1 for surprise attack marker. So +4 to my +1. So he hits me for a 7. I rolled a 3, so yuck. Then I think he went after the American fleet. He rolled a 7 again. I rolled a 7. He went after this airplane. Got a 7 to a 3. After the British. The British are supposed to be at 4. And so we're banging, he's banging away on my fleets here. He's got them all up to 4 sorties now, and he does his last sortie there. It takes me, I didn't realize that okay. Then he flew up there, and I forgot to do the American fleet up to 6 sorties. You'll see us correct that in a little bit. It brings that airplane down. And the reason why he needs that airplane there is because if this airplane here, right here, if he's escorting the invasion, he cannot help in the ground support. So he had to bring down another airplane to help in the ground support. Okay? So that's what this is all about. That's why he's doing some of the shenanigans he's doing. And now he's going to mount the invasion of Casablanca. And he talked about landing next to Casablanca, and I said, you don't want to do that. If you fail, you want to be back in Cadiz. If somehow I manage to get a 6-1 split or something and force this to not work. So if it works, you want to be in Casablanca so the fleet is gone and you don't have to do any, worrying about anything. So I went ahead and I tried to intercept with the 8th Fleet because it's the only thing I got. And it's like, I need ridiculous splits to make this work. and chose to fight the aircraft first. He did his part. He rolled a 1, but I could only roll a 4, which wasn't enough. I needed to roll... actually, there was nothing I could roll. When you look at the math, because he's +4 with that airplane, and my fleet is only +1, the best I can get is a 7. The worst he can get is a 5, which he did, which means even if I rolled the best number I could roll, I wouldn't stop him, and he gets through. So it was actually not in my favor to actually even bother to invade or to intercept. I should have just let him go. That way I'd have saved myself a couple of sorties. Because I actually rolled a 1 + 1 and he rolled a 4 + 4. That's why you see me taking sorties. Okay. Yes, I think that's what we're doing. Right. But looking at the math now, I could not have stopped him no matter what I did. So there was no point to me even rolling. I should have just let him do his invasion, and then that American fleet would only have one more sortie on it for its rebase. So that was a big mistake on my part. Not realizing that the math was way against me. So I go ahead and throw out my tanks marker because that's all I have. So he's +6 to my +1. +6. He's 4 for the armor, 2 for the this ship, and 2 for this airplane up here. This one, the 4th Luft. Okay. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then -1 for attacking a unit in an amphibious invasion, -1 for the city. So yeah, he's doing pretty good. Now he did his part. He rolled a 1. So 1 + 6 is a 7. And I'm at +1, which means all I need is a 4, 5, or 6 to hold Casablanca. And I rolled a 1. So I did not only did I not do that, but his 7 to my 2 is actually a DD. So my garrison is eliminated. My tanks go into the turn track. I've tried to figure out where I was going to put the American fleets. I think in the end I decided just to send them to one of the off-map boxes. And we have a problem. He did not take up this airplane. Should have been up a sortie because he provided ground support. Oh well. Anyway, he goes after my other fleet, which didn't quite understand why, but he did. And then he went after here. And he rolled a 6. He's rolling, his armor is going to try and push the Americans back so he can get to Tangier. So he's attacking here. He has 4 + 2 for an airplane is 6 -1. So he's +5. And I have a 1 for being American and 2 for the tank, so I'm a 3. He rolled an 11. I rolled a 6. Just forces me to retreat, so he attacks again. This is why I was saying he think he's off a sortie here. He ends up with an extra sortie he shouldn't have. So I'm only a defender. Did I roll a 1? He's back to that same +5. He rolled a 9. I rolled a 1. +1 is a 2, which flips me and retreats me. And I said, where do I want to go? I want to go here. Make it harder for him to attack me. He goes ahead and uses up his airplane. When he rolled a 9, at my -1, the best I can get's a 5, so I'm retreated. which is what I got. Then he takes the German infantry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He didn't want to use his other airplane, so he went ahead and threw his tanks in. So now he's +3 net to my -1, so I'm forced to retreat. He goes there. Then he takes the Turk and goes to here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. He was able to attack. He goes ahead and attacks with ground support. He only rolled a 3. I rolled a 3 -1, so 2. And his ground support comes back in 4 turns. And he pretty much has me, bottled up and destroyed here. He takes the Panzer that was northwest of Gibraltar and stuffs him into Cadiz because I do have a surprise attack marker and he doesn't want any shenanigan invasions by the 1st Canadian here because he's used up his surface action marker and so on and so forth. So it's like no reason to give me any hope at all. I think we are doing... What are we doing here? Oh, I think he's going after my convoy. Yeah, he went after my convoy with the guy in Cadiz. So he did some movement of his Spanish. He was like thinking about this. He's like, where can I go to get best position here? And we counted. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's like you can still get there and capture that port so that the Allies can't just drop units in there. He's like, yep, I like that idea. That was us just cleaning up control markers. And then he put the Germans there. And then went ahead and attacked. He's at like... Why is he +0? Oh, he's +1 to my 0. He rolls a 4 to my 2. So I'm flipped. And then he rolls again because that was only he was 1, 2 to there, and then 3, 4, 5. So now he has 6, 7, 8 to attack me again. I totally forgot I had ground support the first time. Just totally missed it. So I went ahead and threw it the second time because I don't have anybody else to use ground support on. And he rolled a 7 to my 2, so I'm DD'd. And Portugal's will goes down by 1. And ground support will come back in 2. And then he just sits right there so that if I were to bring a British unit into Lisbon or whatever, he basically has me isolated and can just blow me out of there. He doesn't really want to conquer Lisbon at this point, but he's going to kind of have to. Otherwise, I'm going to be a thorn in his side. Then he does a little bit of movement around here in the east. Yugoslavs. And then he's just doing supply with his Italian convoys. And I think that's it. We're in the Western operations phase. Okay, so I thought about this. It looks like I'm acting immediately, but I actually thought about this for a bit. Even discussed it with David a little bit. There's no hope here. Okay. I can hold for maybe a turn. If I'm really lucky, I'll hold for 2. But if you look at my national will for the British, is at 11. And for the Americans, Americans are always at 10. Well, with the British only being at 11, I'm going to lose 1 for Gibraltar, so that puts me down to 10. And if I lose 1 for each guy, that puts me down to 8. Which means I can't really be losing my armies through 43 and 44 when I need to do risky things like invading Basra and possibly late 43 trying to get on the continent someplace. If he can keep kicking British armies out, if you can get the British down to like 3 willpower, this is just sort of a thing that we talked about. If you can get the British down to 3 willpower, if you can get the Americans down to 6 willpower, those are sort of the 2 break points. If the British are down to 3 will points, like in 1944, they have to be very careful about their ground troops, because if you kill all 3 of their regular armies, like in France, or maybe kill 1 in the Middle East and 2 in France or something, if you get them down to that point and kill all 3 of those armies, they will collapse. And collapsing that late in the war is totally unrecoverable, because all your fleets go off the board, all your airplanes go off the board, all your guys are, any regular armies you have are flipped. And all your garrisons disappear. So all of a sudden, there's just absolutely no British army at all. Same thing would apply with the Americans. If you get them down to 6, you start concentrating on killing American troops. Because if you can get them to 0, they will collapse. Their navy goes away, and they have to rebuild everything. Now, is it hard for the Americans to rebuild things? No. Is it hard for the British to rebuild things? Somewhat, because they're, especially in this situation where they don't have all their factories and stuff. But that late in the game, by the time they get it rebuilt, game's over. So that's one of the things you have to kind of watch out for. And so with that in mind, and knowing that this is going to go into 44, 45, I'm not going to get any kind of grand counteroffensive off with the West. I needed poor weather here in April. The first fair weather turn, I knew something like this was going to happen. I was just hoping that at that first fair weather turn wouldn't be to like May or June or even July here in the warm zone, so that I could, keep him tied up here. That was the idea. And unfortunately, now as I see is me losing a whole lot of units for no good purpose. So I moved the American convoy down here. I said, "You want to intercept it?" He's like, "Oh, I'm in the wrong bucket." He says, "No, that's okay. I'm not going to intercept it." So I came in here and I said, "Give me this guy here." And he's just going to attack like nutso. He's -1 to... Actually, he's -2 because of the rough terrain, and he's flipped. So I'm -2, and he is +2. I would have rather been able to attack the armored, because it's more likely that this would work. But so I'm -2, and he's +2. So I roll. And the idea here, and I did get what I wanted. I ended up with a net 1. He rolled an 8, so he was very kind and helped me out. What happens is, yes, the American unit is deleted. It's removed. But I don't lose any willpower for attacks like that. If you lose a guy to an AA result in an attack, you don't lose any willpower for it. So that was the whole point of that exercise. Now I pick up the British BEF and the convoy and I say, "Okay, do you intercept me now?" The idea here was if I can use his airplane up to try and stop this convoy like this, then I can probably supply both of these units. Won't be able to supply the aircraft, but I could at least supply the ground unit. He's like, "No, go ahead and leave." And so I said, "Okay, we're just going to go to the North Atlantic Ocean." I had the American fleet and convoy that left, went to Eastern North America, bring the bomber into Newcastle, and end their turn up there. Then I brought a British convoy in here. And took Force H and went ahead and put it in the Arabian Sea so that I have my invasion forces available in the Arabian Sea. I just need to get a better unit over there, like maybe the BEF or something. I'm just not quite sure what I'm going to invade with over there. And then we go into with bomber. This is the American bombers. So he's +2. He rolled an 8, so knocked the American bombers out. And I just decided to hang on to leave things alone. I think that's it. Maybe I'm just doing my supply now. So I did a supply on the British ground unit. And did he intercept me there? I think I might have done the airplane too. Yeah, I did the airplane as well. And then I asked him, "Are you really going to intercept the 6 sortie fleets?" And he's like, "No." So I supplied the ground unit and the airplane that's in Gibraltar. The Soviets did absolutely nothing. They're pretty much in line. Just give you a quick view of the Soviets since it's been a long time since we've been at this game. The Soviets look like they're all sort of just lined up and ready to go for 44. This will change come probably in October and November. This line will not be like this. It will adapt based on the German line. Right now, the Germans have a ridiculous number of units trying to hold off this bulge here. If he's going to hold here, he has to put a ridiculous number of units along this line here, which means that the north might be the easiest place for me to go. I do not put in any guards units until November. The turn right before I'm going to make my first die roll to bring in the Russians back into the war, that's when I will actually commit to where all my guards units are actually going to be. That way the German can't just sit there and say, "Oh, look, all 3 guards tanks armies are up here, and there's like 6 guards infantry unit here, so I know where his big push is," and they go and they, put their counterattack against it. This way, they have no idea. I've got armored the only thing he's pretty sure of is that my armor is towards the center. 1, 2 here. 3. This one's an armor. 4 and 5. So I have 3 armor in the north and 2 armor to the center, but this armor is fairly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He can get to this spot, and this armor could shift down. So like in October, I can shift my armor around to make him think maybe I'm going south. And by having an armor in the center here, I can always shift it north or south. So 2 in the north, 2 in the south, and so on. And then I try to keep my shock armies kind of similarly distributed. 2 in the north, 2 in the south. Actually, I usually put 3 in the south because there's just more space for them. And then the rest is all my infantry. So where I put my guards infantry unit down is where he knows the push will actually come. But hopefully he's only going to have, at best, 1 turn to try and adjust his line before I can start doing my assaults. So the idea is don't give the Germans any more, military intelligence than they need, than you have to give to them. It's just, that's the way it is. I mean, you just should never, never put out those guards units early unless you're actually still in the war. If you're not in the war, there's no reason to give him military intelligence that tells him where you're going and what you're going to do. So anyway, in the no supply phase here for the West, that's where we're at. So I'm going to go back. All right. So 4707 or 4706. This is here. So what I did is I took out the American fleets And the reason why I did that is it allows me to do this same thing, try to run a convoy in there to keep him in supply for like, quote, one more turn, quote, one more turn. So if he doesn't take me out in one turn, I can try to push a convoy in there, put him in supply, then remove the convoy after the supply the following turn, and just try and keep him alive for one more turn. Probably not going to work more than one turn, because then he will, the following turn, he will run him up to 6, and I'll be at low supply, and he should be able to take me out. So at most, I'll get an extra turn out of it. I figured if I had those American fleet and convoy out of there, I mean, I could have made him go up to, 4s, and he would have just gone ahead and used a German airplane, replenishes his airplanes and just pounds them back to 6 anyway. So my thought was I just needed to get him out of the way, and then I can move something else in there. We'll see if that works. Then we go. What else did I do? Did I not? I think I take off. Yeah, I took off this British airplane there. That was in Tangier. Now, I didn't take off the British fleet there because I know he's going to move in there, and it's basically a free naval rebase for me. So I can just leave him at 6 sorties, and then when after he rebases me, I can start replenishing him. And then the American airplane also, it can't be replenished, so it might as well be removed. Okay. And that was me setting a bunch of things back down to 4 sorties in the box. Replacements for the Axis. Brought that airplane down, and that was it, because why did he save 21? Why is he saving money? Oh, I think he's going to rebuild his surprise attack marker this turn right away. So he just brought down that one airplane. Now, if I'd known he was only going to bring down the one airplane, I would have left the American fleets there. But I didn't know that. That's the beauty of the sequence of play. You had to make the no supply calls, taking units off, before I knew what he was going to do. When he saw that, he's like, I don't need all my airplanes. So he just brought down the one airplane. He's going to rebuild his surprise attack marker. So it's a little game of, you think he going to do, then I'm going to do, blah, blah, blah. It becomes that kind of game. So, and that's the Italians getting back their guys. This is me doing the British. And of course the Americans, just like everybody, comes back. And Soviets don't really have, they had an airplane that had some sorties on it. And then there's no upgrades. The Soviets choose to do no upgrades. The Axis moves their surprise attack marker to June of 42, so they'll have it. Should be August. There we go. I think we just put it on the turn track and then moved it to the proper turn, which is August of 1943. So in late summer, he'll have a surprise attack marker so that if I try to do an invasion with the Allies someplace in Europe, he can turn right around and kick me right off the continent. Oh, yes, he put the 8th garrison, used up his last point there. The Russians basically just drop a couple of airplanes, their last 2 airplanes on, so they can get those built up before the end of the year. They will come back at the Germans with 5 aircraft. So the Germans have to make some decisions. We have had some interesting discussions. We had one game that kind of went this way, and he tried something there, and I think he's going to try it again because I made a mistake with the West, and we want to see if we can kind of recreate the same general situation and see if there's a better way for me to play through it. We get into the Diplomacy Cup, and that just for grins, since there's only one thing out there, I just reloaded the cup so that it's completely full. So just to give you an idea, we have in here from all of our stuff, and when he conquers Portugal, there'll be another German pro marker. But I'm just going to show you this stuff here. This is everything that's in there. So we have all 3 political successes, the political failure, and 6 no events. Okay. And then when he conquers Portugal, he will get a pro axis marker in there as well. So there will be 10, 11 in the cup. I mean, neither one of us really think, there's no point to pulling because there's nothing we can really do other than the Allies could take out Amsterdam, and if he got a political success, he would have to activate the Netherlands. But even if I take that out, another political success on my part, I can't use at Amsterdam because I don't have any active countries adjacent or 1 sea zone away from it. It's 2 sea zones to get to the Netherlands. So from England. So it's like there's no point to the Diplomacy Cup. So I just, for grins, because I could, I just loaded it up so the cup looks absolutely completely full. After that, you probably won't see us even bother with diplomacy anymore. And then we go to, this is going to be the end of turn phase. He just gets back his tanks. I get back my tanks. I got a lend-lease with the British. So I got the factory I lost, I gained back. So I'm now up to 5 plus 3, I'm at 8. So I'm at 16 minimum no matter what. I'd like to get some of my factories back. I mean, I don't expect with the +5 that he has with the Germans, I don't expect to actually gain too many hits on him because the Russians aren't in the war. What I'm really shooting for is just to get the British economy back so that I have, 20. See, right now I've got 8. If I could get this down to 2 or 3 lost, then I'd have more like 12 or 12 to 14. 7, 6. Most I could get would be 14, which would be 28 production points. But I'd like to get myself up into the 22, 24 range. That gives me enough capability to run a bombing campaign, keep my fleets in decent order, and try and recover from everything that's going on against me. But I'm having trouble getting there. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's it for moving the turns. I think the only thing we had left was weather. I think that's all we got left is the weather die roll. Yeah, I got a couple of tanks for the British, or for the Soviets. We moved into May, right? Then he rolled, and he rolled a 1, and a 1, and a 2. And in May, a 1 in the cold zone is fair, a 1 in the mild zone is fair, and a 2 in the warm zone is fair. So he has fair weather across the board. So, going into May of 1943 with no Russians to be facing, very little British threat right now. We are going to have probably a very long summer. Probably 5 fair weather turns, either in the warm zone and or the cold zone. Not the cold zone, the mild zone. Problem is I don't have anything I can really do to him with those fair weather turns. I mean, there's just absolutely nothing I can really pull off at this point. So, yeah, this is going to be very, 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 very hard for the Allies to make any headway back. I've been in this situation several times now. I usually can get, just as a point of reference, I usually can get the Western Allies into France here, and maybe as far as the Somme. I think the farthest I ever got on one of them was like to Lille, like the Lille and the Marne and stuff like that. I have to stay kind of on the north of the Loire and the Seine because I don't have the physical troops to swing to the south. With him having extra troops with Spanish and Italians still being in the war, I only get like a total of 9 units in the west, and at least one of them has to spend its time trying to take Basra back if I can. Taking Basra back is very much harder in this scenario because Iraq is allied with the Germans, which means I am not allowed to play a partisans on Basra, which makes it very hard for me to get into that space. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. I do know that I need to get like a real British army down here, right? Like the BEF needs to come down here because I need to have something that can give me a little bit of a punch. I'm just not sure exactly how I do all this. I've always tried to come through here. I'm wondering if maybe this time around I should try to go through Suez. But at this point, because Gibraltar is going to fall, whatever I do, he's going to be able to counter in force in the middle of the summer of 43. So he is also... the reason why this infantry unit is staying in Malvo is he's like, this up here is not a real deterrent to the Allies coming into Norway. They're only garrison units. So he wanted to have a real German army available to try and stop up anything I try and do, which he does. So, and I might try to go north. I don't know. Very sticky situation for the Allies. This particular opening style for the Germans. I'm also streaming on using the BGA platform. I am streaming a similar game, a solo. It's basically the same style, but the diplomacy didn't go as well for the Germans in that one as this one. And still, I'm achieving my early goals of crippling the UK. So this seems to be a pretty good meta. Yes, it's possible that diplomacy could totally turn on you and you could it could not work at all. But that seems to be less likely. I don't know. It's this seems to be sort of the thing to the meta as the way I look at it. It's one of the metas to sort of give the Germans the best chance of winning long term. And I think it has to be countered much earlier than when I'm trying to counter it. I tried this against best player in the world according to BGA, based on his rating, Mark Dye, who's the developer of this game, and he managed to time things well enough with the West that even though I was invading and trying to crush France and whatnot, he managed to draw me off and dilute my strength. Ended up taking Norway away from me. Even though France fell, it didn't fall until May of 1941, which totally and completely destroyed any kind of concept of Middle East campaign or whatever. And part of that was because I brought in the Italians in the teeth of the entire Allied fleet was opposing me. I had Force H, Mediterranean Fleet, and the French fleet all opposing the Italian fleet, which was a huge mistake on my part. I should not have brought the. I had a choice to not bring the Italians to activate them. I could have just put a pro marker like in Yugoslavia or something, and I didn't. And I should have. I should have just deferred on the diplomacy, even if I don't get Italy. Germany can still win the game if Italy doesn't come in the war, but with Italy collapsing and forcing you to have not only to guard the French coast, then you have to guard in the Italians, and you'll be severely delayed in going into Russia, which I was. I didn't have enough troops and things over there to safely really attack him until like September of 1941, which I did just to try to trigger his trigger the stuff early. I didn't want. It still delayed the. I mean, the Allies are not coming in till. Americans are delayed a turn, and his East First stuff didn't. All his counts didn't start from. Not East First, but East Invaded didn't start until counting from September. So that was something that he's a little behind on his production increases and things like that. But he's pretty much got the game in hand. It's just a matter of how long can I hold out with the Germans. I don't think I can hold out. I don't know if I can hold out till 44. That's kind of my goal now. Hold out to 44 and have his total will for his Western allies, which is like 30, and the Russians. I want to keep the total between those three units, those three countries. If I can keep the total down to under 100 and last until 44. That's my goal now. Don't know if I can do that, but that's what I'm going to try to do. When you get into bad situations like this, that's what you need to do. Don't resign the game. Don't quit. You need the experience of these adverse situations. You need the experience on what can I do to try and make his life miserable. Can I somehow get lucky and, I pull off an invasion, say, into the Russians come back in the war, the Germans overcommit to trying to stop the Russian front. Okay? If they overcommit to that, and then you manage to get a big landing and a breakthrough, and you're running around in France. So now German armies have to leave the Soviet Union to come and stop you running around in France, and then that leaves a hole for the Soviets to try and push forward. And maybe you don't win, but maybe it's a lot closer than you think it is, and you'll never know if you don't play it out. So play them out, people. Play the games out at least until like I had one game where he played out the 44 until he got into the summer of 1944 with the Russians, and the Germans just totally stonewalled him and then turned around and shot up like half his army because it was, disjointed and extended. And I was able to cut off units and just kill a whole bunch of Russians in summer of 44. So he had no offensive potential for the rest of the summer for like 2 more turns. I knocked them all out in July. Like half his army, and he was just like, okay, there's no way I'm going to recover from this. Can we just, call it? And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But if you're pushing the German line and you've got a Western invasion in France, you want to play those out just to get the experience, because both as the Germans, you need the experience on how to defend, and as the Allies, you need experience on how to attack even in adverse conditions, and whether you can still get a good enough push on it. Currently, right now, there are some problems with the game mechanics. One of them is the fact that Hungary, I don't know, very rarely do I ever see the Germans try to get Hungary as an ally. For them, it's just a free remove a marker somewhere on the board by conquering it and putting one in the cup. It's kind of like what we usually use Denmark for. The Allies get lucky and pull a political success and drop a pro marker in Italy, and then you immediately conquer Denmark and get rid of that pro marker in Italy because you don't want the Italians to come in as a Western Allied country. Same thing kind of happens here in Hungary. Either you're going to use it to conquer and remove something from somebody, or you're going to conquer it and put a pro marker like in Yugoslavia, or maybe replace the pro marker in Romania if, like, the Russians remove it or something. So, there's no incentive for you to actually bring in the Balkan countries as your allies. There's an incentive to bring in Yugoslavia because it's 2 units in 2 factories. The fact that it has 2 factories means that it can move its 2 units around, and that's what I have over here. Is I have my 2. I have a Yugoslav down here. I have a Yugoslav up here, and then I have one here. This guy just he's actually in the wrong place. He needs to be put on a rail line so he can just rail around and just kind of, I have one sitting in Sevastopol to discourage any kind of cute invasion. He's actually got to roll dice to take me out in Sevastopol, that kind of stuff. So yeah, Yugoslavia is a good thing to have. Romania, he only has him with 1 point, so he has to give a point to him anytime he wants to move more than 1 unit. Because I did take Bessarabia with the Russians, but yeah, this is. I'm seeing this more and more, where this whole taking out the Middle East, going ahead and committing to it, even if it means a slightly reduced Barbarossa on the first turn, where the armored units may be 1 turn behind the initial attack or something like that, or the airplane might have a couple sorties on it. The crippling of the UK, knocking their economy down and getting you the extra pluses against the Soviets. That's why it's important to go all the way and get Basra and or Kuwait, but Basra is usually the one you get. Nice to get Kuwait too if you can, but Basra is the important one. And the reason why is because that +2 against the Soviets mitigates all these countries that you've had to conquer to get where you wanted to go. Belgium, Netherlands, Denmark, Norway possibly, that's 4. Poland is 5. France is 6. Hungary would make 7. Bulgaria would make 8. Possibly French North Africa could be 9. So you could be at a +3. And if you end up having to take on even 1 more country somewhere along the line for whatever reason, you could be up at 10, which would be +4 for the Soviets. But +3 for the Soviets is where this strategy tries to hit. Give the Russians their +3, but you'll have an airplane in Norway and Basra/Kuwait. That gives you +3 back. So then you're +3 to +3 when you're fighting the Soviets in strategic warfare, and you're +6 to 0 or +6 to 2 when you're fighting the Western Allies. That gives you a general advantage in that you can probably recover anything the Soviets take away. You can recover from the West. So you're not going to be going down the slope where you're down 4, 5, or 6 factories. You're going to be down maybe 1 here and there, and then recover it the following turn. So it makes it very much easier for the Germans to try and pull off a win, because you got to remember, once they've conquered France, collapsed France, right? They conquered France, they've collapsed the USSR. Those are either one of those conditions is what they need to win, and then they just have to last till the end of the game. And because they have so much extra space now and a protected Mediterranean flank, once they take out Gibraltar, after collapsing the USSR, that's the next thing, is take out Gibraltar to protect your Mediterranean flank. And then you can just basically hunker down and wait. You don't have to do a lot. You have to defend against the Soviets, and you have to defend against some sort of a invasion from the West. And that's what you basically spend your rest of 43 getting ready for, which you'll see in this game if we ever get around to being able to continue it. Anyway, I'm Dren608. I've babbled along long enough. This is the C.U.C.U campaign. My opponent is Board Game Geek handle is David. I think it's DavidAmidon. I don't know. It'll be in the comments. Yeah, it's an interesting game. We'll see if we can get back on a regular schedule and bring you back some more of these videos and see how this progresses. Until we meet again, stay safe, Oh, I know what I forgot. I forgot to do my commercial. If you like what you're seeing, hit the thumbs up button. It helps the YouTube algorithms put this up for other people to find when they're searching for videos. Number two, if you really like what you're seeing, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the notify button. You'll be notified when I upload another video or when I set up streams to run and so on. So, yeah, please support me by subscribing, hitting the like button, especially hitting the like button. Okay, now I can do my signature sign off. Until we meet again, stay safe and bye-bye.